Well, my name is Reverend Richard Fothergill. I'm an Anglican priest in the Diocese of Carlisle. And last year, I've been a member of the Yorkshire Building Society. I've had a bank account, actually had more than one bank account with them for some 17 years. And then last year, actually as a regular thing, Yorkshire Building Society every month, they send emails to all their members saying obviously wanting to build a sense of community, saying invariably saying, how are we doing as a bank? Give us feedback. We want to hear from you, our members. It's very important to us. We're trying to build a community here. How do you think we're doing? And I noticed I've never responded to those. I mean, I know it's just a marketing exercise primarily, but last June, at the beginning of June, they sent, I noticed on their website when I was moving some money around, I have a savings account with them, that they were going very heavily into promoting the LGBT Pride month of June, the whole month of June. And they had on their masthead, they had the transsexual flag and this sort of thing. And there was a thing from the chairman, I think, or the CEO, whoever, saying what a wonderful thing it was that they were pushing this particular sexual ethic. And so I wrote to them because they'd asked, only because they'd asked for feedback from members. I wrote on email on their portal, because I had a facility there for comment. I wrote just two paragraphs, quite short, saying two things. The first thing was I said, I've been a member with you for a long time, as you know. I think you should basically stop wasting your time and energy on promoting this particular sexual ethic and just concentrate on banking because you're good at that. You're a good bank. They've been a very good bank for the last 17 years. But obviously they were putting a lot of personnel behind this. That means a lot of money that was invested in pushing this particular agenda. And that was my first point, was concentrate, use your resources just to do what you do successfully, which is manage money. That's what you're there for. You're a bank. And the second point was, as I said, as a minister in the church, I have strong misgivings about some aspects of transsexual behavior, particularly the promotion of transsexual ideology amongst children. And I referenced a lot of the press coverage that had been in November or autumn 22 of Drag Queen Story Hour. And I think I put a link to the Daily Mail and a link to the Guardian about how when they'd done drag queen story hours in schools and libraries, a lot of the local parents in particular have been up in arms because they didn't want this ideology of transsexualism, particularly infecting their children, underage minors, that they could have a sex change. It would be good for them, sort of thing. So I said that was my paragraph. I think the phrase was, I have strong misgivings about some aspects of a transsexual ideology. I think that was the phrase I used. Anyways, I sent this off. I'm not thinking really that they'd take any notice of me, if I'm honest. I used to be in advertising marketing before I went to the church, so I do know how some of these things work. And I thought, well, they're going to ignore me. And I thought the best that could happen is if 100 other people did something similar and wrote back and said, look, forget all the LGBT, this controversial agenda of pushing a particular sexual ethic. Just get down to banking, concentrate on banking. That's what you're good at. If 100 other people did it, then maybe next year the marketing department at YBS might say to them, look, we didn't have such a good result with that. Let's not go there. We're not a social pressure group. We're a bank, you know. So anyway, so I left it. And then 2 weeks later, I got this letter, which I sent through to you. I think you've seen a copy of it now. Is that right, Edmund? Have you been able to circulate that? I'm sorry there was some confusion about the tech getting it through to you, but this is the Yorkshire Building Society letter which they sent through to me. Have you seen that?
No, unfortunately, Richard, we weren't able to overcome the technical difficulties gaining access to that. So
that's very strange. Okay, well, I'll scan it again and send it
yeah,
to you
that would
so
be
you
great.
can see accurately what they said to me.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt your testimony,
that's
but
it. That's it, pretty much.
well, no, I'm sure, just a quick question here though before we move on. Have you at any point scanned this to your computer? Because could you share the screen now so we could actually have a look at it?
I have scanned it, and that's what I sent through to Edmund the first time around, but for some reason it wasn't openable. The difficulty is I'm on my old computer, which doesn't have it now, because of this technical difficulty I had a moment ago. I say it's very disruptive that 3 weeks ago my main computer was destroyed with a cup of tea. Amazing how damaging tea can be. So I'm working on my old computer, which hasn't got it, so I can't present it to you this precise minute, but I will get it to you for sure. And as I say, the salient points within it are, I mean, I can read just one of the key paragraphs. And I'm in contacting you in regard to the incident that occurred on 18th of June. Now, I didn't know this was an incident. That sounds like a sort of a car accident or some crime has taken place. All I was doing was giving them feedback, which they'd asked for. It was just obviously the wrong feedback. They didn't want to hear this. The comments made are not tolerable. That's my comments, presumably. The comments made were not tolerable. We have a zero tolerance approach to discrimination against protected characteristics such as racism, sexism, and homophobia. Now, anything I said was polite. It wasn't in any way racist, sexist, or homophobic. It was, as I say, as a clergyman, that's not my style. I communicate politely how you say things. And there was no way that that accusation could be founded against me, other than the fact that they were obviously annoyed that I come up with an alternative narrative on sexual ethics. Anyway, we believe it's fair that this relationship between yourself and the Yorkshire Building Society has irrevocably broken down. Well, I didn't know that. This is the first I've heard about it. All I know is you asked me on comment, I gave you some comment, and now you told me that our relationship is broken down irrevocably. And then the last part of the paragraph is, we are now going to close your account within 2 weeks. And I understand legally, I've talked to legal experts on this, that actually they broke the law in that, because they should have given me 60 days notice to close an account. Actually, they broke it in two ways. They should give me 60 days, not 2 weeks. And secondly, they need to justify why they're doing it. You can't just throw broad-brushed accusations, oh, well, we don't stand for homophobia or sexism, or whatever. You need to say what my crime has been. And they have never done that in the letter or anything else. Yeah, it all blew up in June, end of June. So that was the story. That's my experience with the Yorkshire Building Society. And Julie, they did indeed close the account 2 weeks later. They didn't respond to me in any more, other than sending a check. Wasn't much in that account, I have to say. They sent me a check with a little cover note saying, here's your money. This account is now being closed forever and a day.
Very interesting. Thank you. Can I ask, this incident happened in June. Were you aware of their policy for inclusivity and diversity, or was this a new
well, it's the first I've seen of it in their monthly marketing email message in June about how they were they were pushing Pride Month. I mean, I kind of guessed they must have had a policy of inclusivity. Everybody does these days, don't they? So that's not the problem. The issue was particularly pushing as a virtue transsexualism to children. That was the ethical thing I had a question about, really.
Were you aware, or indeed, did the Building Society have any sort of formal relationship with Stonewall that you're aware of?
I'm pretty certain that they've had, what are they called, some diversity champions in there. And they've and that one thing I've subsequently learned after all the furore last year is that the new, relatively new, because she came in February, the new CEO is very woke and very keen on pushing this sort of agenda. And she actually said in her opening speech when she was elected as or promoted on the board as the new CEO, and I can't remember her name, it's a woman, I can't remember her name, but she put in her annual report, actually, she said, we're very excited at the Yorkshire Building Society about how we are going to basically push diversity and the LGBT pride agenda. And it's pretty much written by Stonewall, I'm guessing. I don't know for sure, I haven't got the evidence of that. But it's very much their language as to what matters in life. And this particular CEO, the way she wrote, that was her opening stuff. It wasn't, oh, I'm going to manage your money and make more money for members and be a good bank manager. It's, I'm here to be a social change champion, pretty much. So I knew that I discovered that after the event, though, not at the time when I wrote my comments to them. As I say, I was really responding because they'd asked. If they hadn't asked, if I hadn't noticed it, that they were asking for a view, as a Christian, I probably would just not bother by,
Yeah.
And I say I didn't really expect them to react. The way they totally overreacted was very intriguing.
Mm. Did you follow this up once you got the letter? Did you
Well, yes, I
suggest?
did. And actually, for 3 days, I wasn't going to do anything about it. But then actually, I got thinking and I got praying about it. And I felt that this actually was prejudicial by them. And so I'm a member of a thing called the Free Speech Union, which you're probably aware of, and have been since its inception, because free speech really matters, in my view. Anyway, I remember the Free Speech Union, so I rang them up, and I talked to a guy there called Fraser. He's my case officer, and I sent him this letter, mysterious letter, which you haven't received yet. And I also sent him I managed to track down the original correspondence of on their portal. I had to go to ask Yorkshire Building Society for it, the exact wording, because it was on their portal. So that to know exactly what I was saying, that I wasn't being libelous or said anything wrong. And I sent both those two letters to the Free Speech Union. Fraser looked at it, and I rang him and I said, "Look, did I say something inappropriate here? Am I in the fault? Wrong? I'm not going to pursue this if I have made a mistake, and I've been rude to somebody." And he said, "No, absolutely not. Legally, you have a very strong case to take these guys to court because they've broken the law in two ways, and they've just been wholly prejudicial. They say they want to protect certain protected groups, homosexuals, women, etc., but they're not protecting your right for freedom of speech to express your view on ethics, which is what it is. It's a sexual ethics issue. They're not protecting your right, and you have a very strong case in law. And actually, they sort of say, we've got lawyers here. We can do this pro bono, if you like." Anyway, but thinking on it, I felt that wasn't the right course to go. I didn't actually want to pursue legally these guys. But they say, well, they did put me on to the Free Speech Union, put me on to a journalist at the Times called James. What's he called? I can't remember what he's called. Anyways, I had a radio interview with James and told him my side of the story. He went back to the Yorkshire Building Society, get their take on the thing. And they wrote that up on 1st of July, Saturday, 1st of July last year. It hit the press. And it was interesting because it was the same day that there was a big court judgment against a woke Chambers against a barrister. She was awarded £100,000 because she was expressing her anti-transsexual agenda views in Chambers. The Chambers essentially sacked her for it. So that was on the same page. There's three stories, and the other one was old Nigel Farage starting the whole thing with his bank, Coutts, and him discovering that they basically got rid of him because he had the wrong political opinions. So there are three freedom of speech issues all on the same page of the Times, which is very interesting. And that really set the whole press hair running. And again, many years ago, I used to be in PR and advertising. And so I do remember a little bit how press work. And on that Saturday in particular, I was inundated with everybody wanting to have interviews. And I was quite selective, actually. I talked to Sunday Telegraph, a friend of mine who's a journalist there, so I trusted her. I went on GB News TV in the evening because another friend of mine who's a minister has a show there, Calvin Robinson. I don't know if you know him. And he interviewed me about the whole banking thing. And then he had a whole hour on banking, essentially woke banking abuse, and particularly in relation to anyone of faith, or Christian faith at least. So that was interesting. And then I did one or two things within the kind of Christian market, like Coalition for Marriage, Premier Radio, this sort of thing. But they were much more sort of, as I say, within the church world rather than the main media. I mean, I got requests from BBC Radio 4 PM and Sky News and all sorts of people to try and do things. But as I say, I took them case by case as to whether it would be profitable to talk about this or not. And so I was quite selective in which ones I went for in the end. I did do a Sky News thing. And then the story then blew up several weeks later, 2 weeks later, when Nigel Farage got hold of he did freedom of information request, and he got all his information about all the slanderous things they've been saying about him as a bank. And as you know, the consequence of that was both Coutts and NatWest, both of their chairman resigned, or their CEOs resigned. And they basically lost their jobs over it because it unveiled a can of worms. And it's interesting, in media terms, I was the little man story. It's like, all very well, Nigel Farage is quite a controversial figure politically. But, if they're doing this stuff to even vicars, clergy up there in Cumbria, nobody's safe kind of approach. And so that's how the press, I think, kind of used it the second time around, 2 weeks later.
Okay, I'm just looking at their diversity policy, and they say that they explicitly say, we understand that all our customers have different life situations and as such have different requirements. And they go on to say, in relation to inclusion, we aim to provide our customers with the best level of service we possibly can by understanding their requirements and asking what they need. Did you specifically point out to them that they were breaching their own policy by not understanding your requirements? And did they come back to you at all on this?
No, they didn't at all. And that was the thing. They wrote me this one sacking letter. And then through the Free Speech Union, the Free Speech Union on my behalf wrote a letter to them saying, hey, what's going on here? Reverend Fothergill is just expressing his freedom, totally right, legal freedom, free view on your how you bank. And we like what they say, we'd like an apology and definitely don't close his account. That was in the 2-week window before they actually did. Now, they never replied to any of that. They just ignored them. They ignored me. And they obviously were hoping the whole thing would just be swept under the carpet and the media furore would die down. But they've never said anything more than that. It's either to them or to me. So.
Okay. Thank you. Nina, I'd like to, any questions you'd like to?
Yes. I mean, kind of a question of clarification, read the letter. If it's signed by someone, please don't say their name, but I'm just wondering if they had a particular role or position that it's worth mentioning. Yes. What was their
no, that it is signed, by a lady. Customer Solutions Delivery is their title.
Customer Solutions Delivery.
Delivery, yeah. And they got a phone number as well there.
Okay, and you didn't ring the phone number?
I did. I rang the phone number.
In 3 days later?
I did, yeah. 3 days later, I rang the phone number and I said, nothing else. I said, I'd like to have a copy of what I wrote to you in your portal, which is obviously getting you so upset. So that was the contact I have. I didn't talk to the person concerned, because she's given her name and she signed it. I talked to a bloke.
Did you ask to speak to the woman?
I did. I asked to speak to that person. Either they weren't there or they've left or something. I don't know. They were not contactable. They didn't say. But interestingly enough, the person concerned, that bloke I did talk to, knew all about me. So obviously there must have been some internal discussions going on about this character Fothergill, before this letter was authorized. I mean, I'm pretty certain this letter wouldn't have been sent out by this customer solutions delivery person unless somebody higher had agreed it, which may have been the CEO woman. I don't know, because if she's pioneering and pushing this agenda compared to the previous CEO who wasn't. And interesting enough, the previous CEO is retired and lives up here in the Lake District and is a great friend of a friend of mine. And I haven't met him, but I heard through the grapevine, through my friend, that he's actually appalled at the way Yorkshire Building Society behaved in relation to this one incident, because it obviously did stir up a lot of press interest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So customer solution delivery.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want the number? Do you want the phone number?
No, it's just curious, isn't it, to pin down which part of the banking structure is somehow dealing, inverted commas, with this.
Yeah, exactly. Either it was, and I think it's most likely it was approved of from on high, the letter to me to sack me, or this particular person, maybe he or she was a transsexual, and maybe really hit a raw nerve personally, and they just off their own bat said.
Well, I suppose we don't know that, but just to clarify, so all of you said you had plural bank accounts with. I
did once, yes. By the time this happened last time, I only had the one left.
You only had one. So did you test your bank after? I mean, I don't know if you have a card. Did you see? Did they give you the money back? I mean, how did
they're going to send a letter that the money will be in the account for 2 weeks, and either I can move it away voluntarily, and if I don't move it away within 14 days, on the 14th day, they will close the account, and then they will send me a check with the money, which is what they did.
Right. Okay. So that's it. You've got the check and
That's it. Got
I had to
check.
put it
That's it.
somewhere else. Right.
Yeah. Now, okay. In my case, it was a savings account. So thank goodness. If it had been a current account, supposing I'm running a business or something, and this is one of my motivations for actually pushing back on it and going to the press, was that in one sense, it's not vital for me. I have current accounts elsewhere with my wife and I. So we had somewhere else to put the money and we could survive. But if it had been a current account, and they do run lots of current accounts, lots of businesses bank with Yorkshire Building Society, and they had the same arbitrary, I'm going to get rid of you as a customer policy within 2 weeks, that would be really difficult to open a new current account anywhere and get your money safely transferred across it to it. You know, having a bank account these days is like having a utility. It's like having water in your taps or electricity. It's a necessity for life, pretty much, isn't it? How many people don't have a bank account in Britain? Is it 1.5 million? No, we have bank accounts. We have to have bank accounts. So in that regard, they have a monopoly of power. And one of the reasons I wanted to go to the press was I'm quite happy to kick up a fuss and have some contacts that might encourage that. But there may well be the next person in line may not be able to do that. They may be a much weaker position.
Sure.
And maybe a current account that they're losing. They may be losing their livelihood over it. And this is what I discovered, funny enough, when I did eventually go to the press and I did Calvin Robinson's evening TV show. They had 3 other people on the panel. And one of them was in exactly that situation. They were businessmen. They were sharing how the difficulties they'd had with Barclays or where it was. And basically their whole business had been ruined because of this woke prejudice, this inability to cope with customers that have the wrong views. So as I say, that was a little bit of a motivator for me to go to the media.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And just final question for me for now. I mean, the account, the savings account had nothing to do with any sort of religious purpose. It wasn't tied up with your church, the personal.
Totally mine. I mean, we opened it 17 years ago when we sold my grandmother's cottage. It was her only house. We sold our house, and for quite a while there was quite a lot of money sitting in there, the residue from the sale. You know, so they've done financially fairly well out of using my money to lend and whatever. So, you know, and I've had a good relationship with the Yorkshire Building Society until this popped up. And honestly, I still say that they're a good bank. They were good at managing the money. Why not stick to that?
Okay, thank you for now.
Okay.
Thanks, Nina. Ian, would you like to put any questions to Richard?
Yep. Hello, Richard. Yeah, from their letter to you, they talk about their not standing for discrimination. It sounds as though homophobic maybe is the charge which covers what they think you said or your position.
Yeah.
Would that be right? Yeah. And I just wonder, I mean that word, the Greek etymology has been rather twisted. It seems that a phobia is not a violent hatred of something. But it does seem that that word has actually been stretched to cover dissent from an agenda. Is that really how you
I'm sure that's fair. You're right. To give you an idea where the media took the story up and the Times journalists talked to Yorkshire's statement, which became their sort of boilerplate statement, which they used for every journalist, was that we don't do this very lightly, cancelling customers. We don't do this very lightly. We only do it in cases of aggression, abuse. There's all 4 things. And discrimination was the 4th one. And I'm pretty sure they pegged me on the discrimination thing. But the way they said it, it wasn't sufficiently legally slanderous of me. They didn't say, Mr. Fothergill has been discriminatory, because they couldn't actually justify that. They just threw it out there as a vague assertion that we don't do this to any customers unless they're aggressive, abusive, offensive, discriminatory. So making everybody think in the media, oh, well, Mr. Fothergill must have been one of those because he's got his account cancelled, this sort of thing. But I think probably of the 4 complaints they had against me in the press, the strongest one was homophobia, discrimination. Yeah.
Yeah. And discrimination itself, of course, is used in a very partial way.
Yes,
we discriminate all through our life, you know, from deciding which pair of socks to put on in the morning to various things we'll have to discriminate. And so,
yeah.
So I think that may be used in a predetermined way. Do you think? Yeah.
I agree. No, I agree.
So, I mean, do you think their attitude is that in promoting pride, which is what they put and which you which you express your dissent about, promoting pride, do you think they see themselves as on the side of the majority view, which any reasonable person would accept, or
Oh,
more
yes.
in the virtuous vanguard, an elite, which has a mission to change us in the right direction?
No, absolutely. No, I totally believe that. It's an ethical worldview, isn't it? And you're quite right. They're on the side of history, they would like to think. And they're very open-minded, they're very caring, and so on and so forth, which obviously is some slap bang up against any Christian worldview on this particular sexual ethic thing. It's a difference. So yes, they would definitely think that they are the good guys in all of this, and this is just an unfortunate sort of backward-looking bigot in Cumbria they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. So maybe the problem perhaps is that the Christian view is not put out there sort of
Yeah,
confidently.
no, I agree. I agree. And
And
as a
so
minister in the Church of England, I can tell you that has been our failing of not arguing and explaining basically God's revelatory view from Scripture and the 2,000 years of the Church's history and a further 1,500 years of Jewish history before that of what the Judeo-Christian ethic on sexuality is about. We failed in that over the last 30 years, is my view.
So the mainstream and traditional view perhaps is not put out because the alternative view is demands ascendancy, and so people don't perceive that there are two views and that the traditional view is has validity. So does the Free Speech Union, which have taken up the case, now they don't have a particular agenda. So is that how they see it, that this is an entirely justifiable view that is not being heard, that is being steamrolled by the progressive view?
Exactly. That's exactly right. And
Yeah.
I did also talk to Andrea Marciano Williams, who I know, who's the head of the Christian CDC, Christian, what are they called? Christian Concern. And they obviously take up a lot of legal cases on faith issues for Christians and have won quite a few cases. And I talked to her about it. And we sort of agreed that, and they and the Free Speech Union do a lot of things in cahoots. So when the Free Speech Union get a very clearly church-based, faith-based issue of freedom of speech, they give it to her and her group, and vice versa. When it's a more general, more secular one, then the Free Speech Union take it up. But as I had already had a relationship with Fraser at Free Speech Union, we decided that I was going to go through them to do whatever we do, and I was listening to their advice and their legal advice as to how I should react, rather than actually going through Christian legal concern on this particular occasion. But you're right. I mean, that is a clear description of it. They would see it as being, he's perfectly allowed to have a Christian viewpoint on sexual ethics, and he's quoted. You've asked him for his view. He's expressed it. So get over yourself. Stop persecuting the guy.
Thank you. Good. That's
Thank you, Ian. Just a couple of other points, Richard. I noticed that the CEO, Susan Allen,
That's her. Yeah.
was nominated in 2018 for the British LGBT Ally Award when she was working at Santander. And she was listed in the top 10 corporate allies list by British LGBT Awards. And she was also the executive sponsor of the Santander LGBT network. And there was a significant growth of membership at that time. So she obviously does her job extremely well. And she won a series of awards then for advancing gay rights, including the Corporate Ally of the Year award at the British LGBT Awards in 2020.
Right.
Did it ever occur to you, or have you even done this, to complain to the Financial Ombudsman for overt discrimination against yourself?
No, I didn't do that. I did put in through the Free Speech Union, I put in a freedom of information request about all my correspondence. Well, their correspondence. Between the 1st of June and end of July, I wanted to find out what they had been thinking and saying about me since the incident internally. and obviously they have to, by law, have to give their customer the details. To which they sent me absolutely nothing. They replied in an email, but they said all they did was send me all my bank statements, which I already knew, already had. They didn't give any correspondence. And again, I can see it all the way through. It's entirely, let's just hope this guy goes away, keep him quiet. They didn't send any correspondence. So either they had verbal conversations only with Susan, what's her name, and they checked it out with her, and she said, yes, sack him. Or they've written stuff down, but they've refused to let me have it. Either way, it smells a rat in that. But I didn't take them to court for prejudice against me, especially.
So where are we actually now with the legal case? Are you pursuing this, or?
Well, I'm not really. I've just got so much other stuff on. You're quite right. I ought to have another chat with Fraser. I haven't talked to him for months to find out. I know from their perspective, they've been inundated since last July when Farage and I and the others blew up on this. They have been inundated with bank woke problems. And particularly the transsexual thing is in most of their mailbag now and cases, he said to me, are in this area. Because again, that's where the media has been very good at putting a spotlight on it, that this particular agenda, this particular worldview has been so aggressively pushed by Stonewall that is now bearing all manner of bad fruit, divisive fruit in all different sectors, but particularly in the banking sector. I didn't know that you just read out a moment ago about the Miss Hill. I didn't know that she, sorry, what?
Susan Allen.
Allen, keep getting her name wrong. Susan Allen. I didn't know that about her history, that she was obviously very, very in with Stonewall and seen as one of their poster girls. That doesn't surprise me a great deal to hear. So where are we at now? You're quite right. I ought to give Fraser a call. Perhaps I'll do it this week if I get back together and find out what's happening. I'm pretty sure the whole thing, as far as I'm concerned, has just gone quiet, really. It's just nothing that's happened.
Yes, well, it does seem like she is managing the situation quite effectively and chillingly from what you're saying.
Another thing I throw in for you, just as I had, because of the media furore, I had over 200 bits of correspondence with people across the country, many Christians, but many not. I had two gay guys writing to me saying, I'm disgusted about what they've done to you. One of them said, we didn't fight for 25 years for gay rights, for it now to be turned on its head, that people who suggest that transsexualism is not the best way to live get penalized. And he said, I stand completely with you, Richard. This is not the way we should operate in a fair society, it's kind of thing. And large numbers of correspondence. I had probably about 10 or 15 of them said, we've got Yorkshire Building Society accounts, which we're not going to close. I've got one guy called Malcolm who's on a bit of a mission on my behalf. I mean, I encouraged him to do this, but he's going to go and ask awkward questions at their AGM in April this year. And he wants to put down a motion to sort of say, why are you operating as a social change agent when you're running a bank? This is not what we put our money with you for. Again, it's the old argument of stick to your lane and stick to what you're good at. Don't go around just doing Stonewall's bidding. Anyway, he's on a bit of a mission to sort of do that. I can't obviously go to the AGM because I don't have an account anymore. But he has. He had 5 accounts. He's closed 4, but he's kept 1 so that he can get access to the AGM, he says.
Okay. I assume you opened a bank account elsewhere. Did you have any problems with that?
No, I already had current accounts elsewhere and a savings account elsewhere, so I just transferred the money into that. No, nobody asked. No problems. But if I try to open a new one, I dare say there may be a question in the questionnaire saying, have you ever been refused banking? Which in a sort of way I have now. I've not been refused opening an account. I've been refused an account I already had. So I don't know how you would answer that question. But so they might cause a problem in the future. I don't know.
Yes. Okay. Nina, do you have any further questions?
No, I mean, I suppose, I understand that your motivation for writing this responses, as is your right, was informed by your religious beliefs. Obviously, you're publicly Christian. I'm just wondering, did you discuss the, I suppose, the religious aspect with any of your peers, any other Christians, any other priests, any other, do you know what I mean?
No, not. I didn't talk to the bishop or any of those kind of guys. I mean, I'm very sort of loosely Anglican at the moment because I've got, I think, all permission to officiate PTO. I'm not actually an incumbent rector anymore. So I just have a volunteer helper in the
Yeah.
local parish. So no, I didn't talk to any other clergy about the decision. Once it got going, absolutely. I talked to many of my colleagues. I'm also involved with a ministry called the Filling Station Trust, which is a non-denominational Christian ministry. It's my job, and of which there are actually two other Anglican priests on our staff. And I talked to them and all the staff. There's 11 of us on the staff. I talked to them all about it, and we had a good discussion about the ethics and what's appropriate and how to proceed and this sort of thing. So I really, for wise counsel, I kind of went to them probably.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks, Nina. Ian, do you have any final questions for Richard?
Just one thing to clarify, Richard. I understand that when you responded to their marketing suggestion for any nice feedback about their services, you entered something on the portal. Was that is that a portal which customers can see other customers' comments, or was it purely you communicating to the bank?
It's only from you to the bank. No, there's not a public. It's not a comment section as you would have for the public to chat about things. No.
So it was purely privately giving them your.
Yeah, which again, I've heard subsequently from a couple of the people who have closed their bank accounts with Yorkshire, that they did the same thing. They wrote very similar letters. In fact, one lady sent me what she'd written, which I thought was a lot sharper than what I'd written after the event. She wrote to them, and all she got was a boilerplate standard response of, we're there to help diversity, but they didn't close her account. They just left her. I think possibly because by that stage, let's say the press was so stirring it up, it wouldn't have looked good if they closed another one, I think. But she said, why didn't they penalize me if they penalized you, Richard? I think it's because they obviously saw me as a small person, they could get away with it. And he's just some clergyman up at the top of the country. Doesn't really matter. We don't want these people making comments about things that we disagree with, So that's where the freedom of speech, as I say, they were very, freedom of speech union, sorry, they were very helpful in reflecting back to me, because they say we obviously get a lot, our mail bag is full every week, and about half the people that are complaining about an issue, it's not really a freedom of speech issue. It's just either someone's been impolite or they have misunderstood the relationship they have with the organization, this kind of thing. And but in your case, it is very clearly they have asked for an opinion, you've given it, they've silenced you, closed you down, and penalized you for having a bank account with them ever again, which has repercussions for you having future bank accounts elsewhere. So it's a very hard response, really, just because they don't like what you're saying. As I say, they said I should have taken them to court there and then. But as I say, I just felt a bit cautious about doing that. I wanted to see how it would play out after the media thing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I mean, clearly, from all you're saying, that this is there could be very serious repercussions in general for people because they are reacting against the expression of any views that they deem unacceptable.
Correct, yeah.
Of course, when it comes to financial issues, this has huge implications for how people conduct their lives. So this is a form of social engineering, would you say?
That was a phrase I used when I was on GB News, that the Yorkshire Building Society has not been set up to involve themselves in social engineering. So why are they doing it in this particular way? I mean, this may look like the very trendy, modern, on the side of history, ethical issue at the moment, but it will change. Things will change. And so, you're quite right. It has greater repercussions. But if you're going to behave like that and get away with it, who else are you going to cancel next week? This is what they did in Germany in the 1930s against the Jews, wasn't it? And the groups that the Nazis disapproved of. They got the banking sector. The first thing they did was that Jews are not allowed to have bank accounts because they want to mention, get rid of them, And again, Free Speech Union will be very good at highlighting that aspect of it. I don't know if you've been following, obviously we were following a lot last July, August, September in the media, and the comments coming out from Toby Young about this whole banking thing. And that is the much deeper, more sinister agenda, which really we need to, and what you're doing is a really good thing, because we need to get the facts, we need to get some objective information together. These are the things that are happening. This is what the prejudice looks like, this modern prejudice. This is how it's working itself out. And so it needs to be stopped. It needs to be challenged. And we need to go back to a more equitable scenario with banking.
Thank you. Yes, I think it's going to be a very important testimony with part of the final report, Richard. So thank you for coming and sharing all of this. We will be doing a short summary of the hearing today. So I may get back to you at some point with some supplementary questions, and we'll be able to see that, so to see that it is a fair and accurate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Summary.
Well, I will get this letter to you by hook or by crook. I shall make sure I shall scan it again, and I shall send it as a PDF, which shouldn't get blocked to you, Edmund, if that's all right. And hopefully you'll be able to see it in writing as to what they actually said to me. And then I've also got a copy of the little note they sent, basically saying, with the check attached, saying your account is now closed.
Yes, we would like to see all of that, please. So thank you. Yes. So thank you again. Thank you for your time. Please let us know any future developments that may happen.
I will. I say you nudged me to really get in touch with the Free Speech Union again. I will call Fraser. But my last conversation with him before Christmas, he was just so inundated with so many other free speech issues, in the banking sector and with transsexualism, that I could see his focus has definitely gone off my case. But I will get back to him now.
Yeah. Okay, excellent.